That's why I said the tectonic shift. In the old days, it is Britain, you know. Britain rules the world. Then America ruled the world. But now there is China. So that's why I see, you know, Obama and him. So they want to fight for domination. But China says, you know, this is my area. And as I said, during the San Francisco Treaty, I was not even invited. As I said, in the old days, after World War II, children, you know, means all the red countries, shut up, you know, we will decide for you. So now China said, no, you cannot shut me up. I'm big. So, you know, why you shut me up? So exactly in your particular question, I showed you when there was a treaty in San Francisco about the China Sea. You know. So in the old days, we are like children, we can, you know, and those big powers, they can decide this, decide that. Yes. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Brendan. I'm Sri, I'm from the Center for My Studies. I want to ask you one question about ASEAN. Given this rivalry between the US and China, and given the fact that ASEAN itself is not one, it's two at least, I should say, the more advanced ASEAN and the less developed ASEAN. I wonder in what way and how these less developed ASEAN can benefit from this rivalry between China and the US.
Well, you see, first of all, you have to create the unity of ASEAN. You see, the ASEAN must be united among themselves, meaning they have to, the CLBM should go up to the standard of Singapore and so on. Then if we are united, then ASEAN will say, you know, I'm a big power too, you shut up. So that's, to me, that's the main thing, because like Cambodia, well, ASEAN as a whole, as I said, can be like a political, you know, and America and China are fighting for the political, so you get from both, you know. You get China to build your infrastructure, and America now become John Kerry comes here, you know, this and that. So, yeah, just let me first and see what she had before. Yeah.
I'm actually like coming from a different background, not economic side, some things that you mentioned. Regarding your presentation, I see a paradox which is not, which has not been addressed particularly, the environmental change and the economic growth. When we're talking about the rise of China, the one of your slides demonstrates something, some indicator about increasing numbers of population, production capacity, all of these things. And they seem to be on the detriment of the natural resources that we are having. And given the fact that we are having sort of these environmental problems, increase of heat in the world, is it a risk, or is it something that the world should be changing in the debate of development rather than based on this economic, you know, theory of development?
Yes. Yeah, please finish here.
Yes.
No, this is a very great question. I have a PhD in economics, but nowadays it's sustainable development. You're right. And environment, of course, plays a big role. We just had a big conference on climate change in Paris, you know, and the UN, I'm from the United Nations. We have, this is the most, actually, you are right, it's the most important problem is greenhouse gases. But China, for the first time, has assigned this Paris Agreement. They want to also reduce this greenhouse. You are right that China has been so far ignoring environment. Now going back to TPP versus RCEP, you know, TPP placed a lot of emphasis on environment. But China has just now realized that they cannot do it. They had one preaching was covered by smoke, you know, for days, 1 week sometimes. So the environment is a big thing. Of course, in America, you're Australian.
No, I'm not. Cambodian.
Cambodian, but your accent is...
You use a bit.
Yeah, no, because America, there is now rivalry between Democrats and Republicans. You know that, right? For the presidential election. Now the Republicans say, oh, Obama talk about environment, so on. That's not the big problem. It is a big problem. So you are right, you know. I mean, this is the real problem of the next century. So as an economist, I have to learn also about environment. And we talk about sustainable development now, not just economic GDP is not enough. Yeah.
Can I just add that I'm not responding to what you were saying, but something that you said earlier about Cambodia. Earlier about Cambodia, depicting Cambodia as an example of China in terms of its rate of growth. And I would like to argue that this is a bit misleading because Cambodia is different to China in many ways. And I would not like to talk about that, but given the current situation of Cambodian, of some sort of a movement within the country demanding for a consideration on natural resource protection or whatsoever, and the rise of capitalism, also the rise of capitalism in Cambodia. So it's misleading in the term that, well, should Cambodia be going to this sort of pathway of development rather than a development that is measured, for example, based on the happiness than the GDP growth or economic growth.
Oh, well.
I'm also wondering whether all Chinese, in the context of their economic growth, are they happy? Well, not in the sense that they are having money, but in...
Yeah, no, mine, as you said, or somebody else said, is too much oriented towards GDP. No, there's a lot of unhappiness in China, you know. I talk about smoke, you know, figuring out. But in particular way, what you said, of course, there is this problem, you know, about these natural resources, and it's all connected to environment. So there is big dangers. But I said, at least now they're signing this agreement to reduce their greenhouse gases. But in general, there is, you see, that's why I say there is a similarity. You know, I'm not saying that Cambodia is like China, but similarity in that they put GDP, you know, they don't think about environment. That's my, I think, and what's the similarity. Of course, Cambodia is a small, China is big, but similarity, urbanization. You don't have to look far, or empty apartments here also, you see, and less. That's the problem, you see. If you have, now China used to be centrally planned, communist. Used to be, everything is planned by the government, but now they let private enterprise overtake, you know. So it's all confused, basically. And that's why I say now China is in a mess, you know, because they want to, how far can they go in capitalism? To take place. So yes, so it's my picture may be too rosy, you know, but that's why I said there is a similarity. Growth without worry, poor people getting poorer, you know. And you?
Yeah, my question was, when we talk about ASEAN, for me it's not clear when you said US and China or something like fighting for equality for women, like this metaphor, but I'm not sure who do they talk to. Because if we take, for example, the European Union, we have what we call in French a délégation de souveraineté. I don't know how you say it, but it means that each country give up a bit of its power to an above organization. But with ASEAN, you tell me if I'm wrong, we don't have this kind of organization. So, when you say they fight for ASEAN, who do they talk to? Because from what I understand, actually, is it that they talk to national governments, which would not be ASEAN, but national countries? Do they talk to private enterprise? Or who do they talk to when they fight? We have a head with a body in European Union, but what is the head of ASEAN?
Yeah, so two questions actually. One is the delegation of, how do you call it in French?
Sorry.
Yeah, what did you say? in
Une
French?
délégation de souveraineté.
Delegation of authority. What he's saying is, if you have a European Union, you have to delegate some of your, surrender some of your authority to the common, to European Union, you see. The same here, there is none of that, you are right. Nobody will, so, I mean, this ASEAN Secretariat is very small. I have it here somewhere. I went quickly over that because it was not a big topic. Here, well, there is also lack of administrative capacity.
And politique.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, yes. So as I said, this ASEAN Economic Community faces many problems. But look at this. We have only 17 million in annual budget. European Union, of course, Europe is much bigger. It has a big governance in Brussels. So the delegation of authority, or I say surrender authority. Here, they don't want to surrender to ASEAN Secretariat. I know these people, they are in Jakarta. They have no power. Now, on a bigger scale, you know, the UN, people always say, oh, UN has no power, just talk only. NATO, no action, talk only. But without UN, maybe we have World War III already. So, that's, well, it's international law, you know. Yes?
The question was when you were talking about the rivalry between two
okay,
countries.
yes.
They talk to
Okay, the rivalry, they have to talk with the governments.
So is it ASEAN?
Well, in ASEAN, it's not the ASEAN Secretariat, but you know, well, the TPP, for instance, they have to talk with the governments individually. But what you are saying is, do they talk to ASEAN Economic Community? Not yet. As I said, you know, the ASEAN has a very little infrastructure. You cannot talk to ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta. It's very small. So, very good question, because who do you talk to, you know? Can you say, oh, if I talk to you, can you make sure that all ASEAN agree? Not yet. So, all this talk about ASEAN Economic Community is to me a big topic, but not yet. And you, Ambassador, you already have his head.
Sorry, I beat you to the post. Benny, my name is Jose Mora, teacher at AUPP. Thank you for coming and appreciate that.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. But one point and probably, or one observation and then 2 points in there. In some respects, I think the congruity of wave cycle has already predicted there will be a hegemonic transition. Now, the issue is the terms of the hegemonic transition. The capitalist system cannot work unless there's a hegemony. Someone needs to pay for the public goods. Yeah. Someone needs to carry the costs because everybody else free rides. That's just the nature of the system. Yeah. The thing is, how do you deal with that? So the transition can go in different ways. When the U.S. took over from Great Britain, the control of Latin America, there were conflicts. After all, they fought 2 wars. So it was not a happy-go-lucky sort of relationship. There was conflict. But eventually, Great Britain surrendered its control of the Western Hemisphere and allowed the local hegemons to assume control. Okay? Basically, the comparisons of Mearsheimer between the Caribbean and the Southeast Asia Sea are very similar, and they should be considered parallels. When we want to know about future, we need to think in terms of what does history tell us. So in some respects, transition doesn't need to be conflictual, but there's bound to be a transition. The thing is, can we buy China today at its current costs? Can we cash in right now instead of waiting further down the line in building a deeper relationship? The issue of trade that somebody else had mentioned, I think is very important. But we should not be, let's say, obfuscated by the mirage of trade. Norman Angell had already predicted in 1910 there will be no more wars because European powers are too economically interdependent. He was proven wrong just 4 years later. So it doesn't mean that nothing will happen. It means, just like in Clausewitz, the fog of war, how can we use our training to further and kind of prepare ahead of time to cash in China today, to tie them into the system, prepare them to be the next hegemon of the capitalist system, so that it continues to progress. Good, bad, or different, whether capitalism is going to be more green or less green, it doesn't matter. It's just, I mean, the political economy of it is, can we cash them in now while the prices are attainable?
Well, thank you very much for your very well articulated comment. He and I were professors at UConn together, but one day I told him about Cambodia and he got so excited and he moved in. Yeah, he said, God sent me to Cambodia. But Buddha also. So that was a very good comment. We used to talk like this all the time, so that was not a question. So I'm very happy. If you want to hear more, you should enroll in AU. How much tuition? Yes, Ambassador Samsung.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you. I appreciate so much your presentation. Indeed. I just have an observation, not to put your question. Of course, maybe one question, but it's a mega question, but very quick. I'm sure from you, it's very easy question. Very easy, you will have a very short answer. But the observation, what looks real, and also gentleman from Monsieur the question is something interrelated between the two, because it's something about ASEAN framework. It's very important because you have to set your own policy to work the two giants. I mean, you're just talking about the rivalry between the two, and everybody concerned about this, not in terms of how to do this, for a negative way, but we want that to be a positive thing, a positive way as how we can have some sort of harmony between our foreign policy, the common foreign policy of ASEAN toward the two superpower country. I mean, that two giants. In terms of this, we need to know that we have to shape our house first. And very important that now ASEAN now try to promote this regional integration process in terms of economic setting, but also political setting. You see, we have 3 pillars at this moment according to the new charter. I'm not specially in ASEAN, but I'm no foreign policy because of my experience in the past. But I have my colleague all the time from ASEAN. So we just, I just want to point out that ASEAN in EU, there are certain similarity, but they are different also, many different. And we try to aspire to do something like EU, but we don't know whether we have learned a lot, we have some sort of engagement with European country and also with other countries in other regions also. You see, this is something very important, that if you just give perspective of ASEAN structure, you see the membership of ASEAN, they are so diverse in terms of political structure, in terms of economic level of development differences, also diversity in terms of cultural interaction. But we try to do this. That's why we have ASEAN Economic Community, we have ASEAN Social Cultural Community, we have a political, of course, pillar, not a pillar, political community. It's very important that the three have to go together. And this is we need to do in ASEAN way. We used to say them all the time, but I know that it's very important. But this is something that Professor Danny already put this, as you can see on the slide there. But at the same time, I acknowledge, and the question is very relevant, very pertinent in the context of ASEAN, how we can do. In the context of ASEAN, we also have very different kind, a variety of sub-regional framework. You have ASEAN Cooperation Dialogue framework, initiated by Shinawatra, Thaksin Shinawatra over the path from Thailand. You have also Asian Europe meeting, ASEM. I've been involved all, I know that. How we can do that is rapid order. You have also sub-regional framework like Mekong River Commission, ADB regional, AGMS, Greater Mekong Sub-region, and just talking about CMEV, CMT, all the corner, all the triangle economic cooperation. Because everything that we try to do is to focus, to concentrate on economic side. But from the political side, they need a lot to do with respect to how to promote capacity building. And this is something that I just give some of element as an example. This is something I would like just to share, with the professor. But I know that professor, maybe he know better than me how to do more, Dr. Benny. Now the question for me, do you optimistic or pessimistic with respect to the two giants, rising of China on one side and the concern from United States on the side? But please,
optimistic in the relation between
of course, optimistic in relationship because we have also lessons learned from the past during the Cold War. During the Cold War, I was in Eastern European country when I was young, and you see Russia, Soviet Union, former Soviet Union. They tried to do something reform during the time of Gorbachev, but they could not succeed in reforming. In reforming the country or the bloc structure. And then it's a collapse. But China is very smart. China takes capitalism. It means liberal economy. But at the same time, they still have control in terms of a political structure. But now it's something become relevant in the context of two giants. But I don't see that this is, are we now living in a bipolar world or more still multipolar world? This is a very important question.
Specific question.
This is just only a question, short one. I know that the time constraint, I don't want to burden you.
Ambassador Sun Sun, by the way, is going to teach next semester here, and you can see he is an excellent professor, so you can take his course. So I think you put it, but the ASEAN way can be a very bad thing too. ASEAN way, you see? The ASEAN way is always consensus.
Yes.
So you must have consensus all the time. And that sometimes takes years to do. So
It's a long way.
first about the bipolar, yeah, that's another thing. About the new Cold War, is it the new Cold War? Of course, it's not the same as the old Cold War. But bipolar, yes, because there is the European Union. But I'm concentrating on China and US for this region. But in Europe, of course, the competition is not between China and US, but Vladimir Putin and Cuba. So about Middle East, but Vladimir Putin is also a power player there. But yeah, sorry, you about the ASEAN way. So you mentioned, about which do we talk to? I said the ASEAN way can be impediment because the ASEAN way means they always have to have consensus. So it's very difficult to always
This will take time, to my knowledge.
By the way, this is my nephew, just came from Melbourne 4 days ago to listen to this lecture. This is the first time to come over here. Any questions? Yes.
Regarding to Mr. Ambassador.
Sun.
Yes. Sorry, but I also have a question about USSR or Russia.
Yeah.
How big is the role of Russia in escalating the conflicts of the United States and China and ASEAN? Is it still a relevant factor, or
Well, you mentioned rightly, you said USSR, Russia. So this is two different things.
Oh, okay.
USSR,
Current
yeah, the current Russia. Yes. No, there's nothing.
nothing.
First of all, they have no money. China has all the money. Oil is the only commodity of Russia, and this morning it's been $29 per barrel. So drop all the time. So Putin's role here is the zero. But in Europe, of course, precisely because of what we say, USSR, he wants to recreate the USSR. As you know, the difference between Russia and USSR is the breakup of Soviet Union into many small countries. You know, Ukraine, Belarus, and all that who used to be part of Soviet Union. And Putin wants to create back to the old Soviet Union. That's why first Georgia, and then now Ukraine, and so on.
Thank you very much. We have a very lively discussion. We would like to invite everyone for refreshments outside, and the discussion and the questions can continue. Thank you very much for coming.
Nhưng mà bia interview, mau bia interview.
Oh, kêu càng nhiều rất là kêu ông con đó, kêu thầy khác, đấy.
Quan.
Thanks. I thought that was moving. Thank you. That's that